Hello, welcome to week 7 lecture 34. Today we will talk about corpus linguistics. So let us begin with defining corpus linguistics. Then we will also talk about different types of corpora, how we create corpora and the corpus approach. So there are lots of studies nowadays being done which follows corpus approach. So what does that actually mean? So we will know all about those in today's class. So let us begin with the definition of corpus. When we talk about corpus in corpus linguistics, we mean that corpus is a large structured systematic collection of naturally occurring examples of languages stored electronically. So those things, those words which you see in bold are actually the important features of a corpus. So it has to be large. So if you have like 100 sentences, collection of 100 sentences, you generally don't say that I have a corpus of 100 sentences. You will say I have data of that particular language. It has to be structured and systematically collected. So it can't be just random. Generally certain domains are followed. So one can create corpus for say in Hindi agricultural terms or sentences related to agriculture or education or science or technology. So there can be different domains. So why these domains? To make it look more systematic, organized. And of course corpus, when we talk about it in today's world, we mean it has to be stored electronically. It's not about having collection of lots of books and books have sentences. So I can't say I have corpus of that particular language, because it has to be systematically structured and large, and of course it has to be stored electronically. So when we talk about corpus linguistics, we talk about the study of language through the use of corpus, because corpus contains the examples of natural occurring instances of language. So when we mean naturally occurring instances of language, what we mean is that how language occurs in our day to day discourse, whether it is in written form or in oral form. So it can be speech corpus, where we are discussing about or collecting data from the speech, how we talk. If we are talking about text corpus, then we are collecting material or data from say newspaper, books, the way language is used in text. So that is what is meant by corpus, and it helps us to study patterns. Patterns means how language is actually used. Frequencies, we can study about frequencies. So you can have you can choose certain words and look about its frequencies, how many times it is being used. So if you have a corpus of say comments on social media, for example on Facebook, so you collect the comments, and if you have huge number of such comments, you can create a corpus out of it, and then you can see what are the most frequent words used, or in certain combinations what words occur. I will come to that again. And of course it also helps us to study differences. So you can compare languages. So all of these actually we can study through corpus, but not limited to these. So here in this example, where this is a corpus of contemporary American English, here you can see the frequency has been recorded looking at the corpus. So you can see there are certain list of words given, very, really, exactly. So these are the words and the frequency, how many times they occur in speaking and how many times they occur while writing. So a comparison has been done, the data has been compared, and we see that in writing vary occurs lots of time more than in written text. So vary occurs more frequently in oral text than in written one. So that can be found. So the same for other words as well. So you can actually look for this corpus, and you will find lots of interesting studies based on that. So now corpora can be used as resources. So, in the last class I was talking about computational linguistics and I was talking about various applications. So, for all these applications what do we need? We need huge amount of data. I talked about training the system, when we train the system by giving them lots of data. So, what is this data? This data is actually the corpus. So, we need different types of corpora to train the machine. Whether we are talking about machine translation, speech language technology, creating digital dictionaries, whatever we are planning to do, we will need huge amount of corpora for those. So, based on that machines can be trained. Not only for language technology, corpora can be used for various other purposes as well, like language teaching and learning. So, we see lots of studies being done based on corpora. So, how corpora actually helps us? So, corpora will help us by giving us the patterns of the errors. We can know about what are the most common patterns in errors. So, if we are talking about learning English as a second language. So, maybe the speakers native language of the speakers is Hindi and they are learning English as their second language and we have a corpus of that. And then we can find out the patterns of errors, those are most frequent and the teachers can work on those patterns and work on those errors and help the students to learn more efficiently. There are also certain corpora which are for particular purpose, like English for specific purpose. So, when we have corpora for say academic word list or academic writing, so there are certain words which are more frequently used for academic purpose. So, these corpora can help us tell about that. Moreover, these corpora can actually tell about the pattern, how academic writings are done, which can help in creating various pedagogical apps or books, or which can also help the teachers understand the pattern better to teach in the class. So, we see that corpora can be used for various purpose. It is not only for language technology, language teaching and learning and also beyond that. So, there are different types of corpora and we can classify the types based on different classifications. So, we can talk about modality. So, if we want to classify corpora based on modality, we can talk about three types of corpora: text corpora, speech corpora and multimodal corpora. So, text corpora has only text in it. So, there can be different types of text. As I mentioned, there can be domain wise text, there can be different domains like education, science and technology, healthcare. So, depending on different domains, there can be lots of text collected from say newspapers, books, journals. So, but all of these are in text format. There can be speech corpus or corpora. So, these will be based on speech, the oral use of language, and then there can be both together. So, we have the same sentence in text and also in speech. Then again there can be the classification based on annotation. So, there can be unannotated corpora or annotated corpora. So, unannotated corpora is just collection of the language use. So, whether it is text or speech, it is just the collection of the language use. So, we see text or we see speech, it has no added information, just the collection of the data, it is raw corpus, it is also called raw corpus. So, but when we annotate, that means when we give some extra information, when we add some extra information to the corpus, then we call it annotated corpus. So, annotation is about giving some more information about the corpus. So, one can go for POS tagging, that is parts of speech information can be given. So, the sentences in the corpus can be divided or can be tagged based on the parts of speech. So, you can see in this example, I saw bird. So, if I have to just give the information related to parts of speech, I will give like I is singular pronoun first person, saw is past verb, bird is singular noun. So, these are some of the ways of tagging, POS tagging. Then we can add more information to that. We can add grammatical information to that. We can add semantic information to that. So, there can be various other information which can be added to the corpus based on the use. So, depending on the annotation, the corpus can be used for various purpose, for various applications. In the next example, you can see the moment I see her, I am going to kill her. So, for this sentence, this is also annotated, but we do not see a POS tagging here. Rather, what do we see? We see it is marked aggressive. So, we are giving certain other information to it. We are marking or tagging the data here based on say sentiment, aggression. So, we can tag or give extra information. There can be different types of extra information which can be given to a data, and it is not only limited to one. So, for the same sentence we can provide both POS tagging and also information like aggressive, hateful, or whatever information more we want to add, or more grammatical information, semantic information. So, for the same corpus we can give all the information we want. But when there is no information, just the set of sentences, then that is raw corpus. But when we have those added information, it is called annotated data or annotated corpus. So, methods of annotation can be of two types, manual or semi-automatic. So, manual generally means humans, they will sit, they will discuss, they will annotate the data. So, generally when we talk about annotation of corpus, as I mentioned, corpus is a huge amount of data. Annotation is not possible for one human being to do. So, there is a team which works on it. So, they annotate the data. So, it consumes huge time when it is done manually, but it has a tendency of being more accurate. Why? So, for example, certain corpus is being tagged for say POS tagging or for other sentiments, then one annotator may find it little confusing, but then he or she can discuss it with his or her team members, and then there can be discussion, and then mutually they can decide how to tag the data. So, those things help and makes the data tagging more accurate. Then there is another way of tagging, that is semi automatic way. So, the system does half of the job. It tags the data as per it has been trained, and then based on that it is again checked, right. So, humans check it, but at times it can be biased and not suitable for all the tasks, but of course, the work is done faster. So, some of the tools which are used for annotation are the basic ones, sometimes like Excel or spreadsheet. It can also be BRAT, which is again a general annotation tool. So, these type of tools are used. Sometimes some modified tools are also created or designed to annotate data. There can also be a way of annotating it through crowdsourcing. Some of the apps are there through which actually it is annotated by the maybe by the native speakers. So, they tag their own sentences or their own data, the data which the native speakers have given. For example, if I talk about speech corpus, so maybe a speech corpus is built directly from the native speakers. They are recording their speech and corpus is being created. So, they have certain type of apps in their mobiles, and through that they are recording their speech, which is being added to the corpus, and then they are again responsible for annotating it. So, that is faster and cheaper, because at the same time lots of people are working on it. They are giving the data, they are creating the data and also annotating it. But what about reliability or quality check or responsibility? So, if these people, they are doing it, but suddenly they may not find, like they may not have time to do that. So, they may leave it half done, or they may not like it doing, or maybe at times they are not doing it correctly. So, there can be things like that. So, but nowadays crowdsourcing has become very popular, because otherwise we need to hire a team and then people will sit together, annotate and all. But for crowdsourcing we do not need to hire people, they are from their house, from their home, they are doing the work. Whenever they are getting free time, they are just using their mobiles and they are doing through that. So, it is quite simple and easy to do, but then the problems comes with the reliability and the responsibility, because these people are not totally responsible for doing that. They are just doing it for helping their community or something like that. So, maybe they can leave it half done, and it is also easy for simple tasks. So, one can train the community members for simple tasks, but if the task is little complicated, like giving grammatical information, that we can't expect people to do without a thorough training. So, that becomes difficult, because only experts can do grammatical annotation. So, giving those extra grammatical information can be possible only for a linguist to do. So, we can't expect someone just without any training to do that, but maybe someone without much training in linguistics can tag a data for say aggression and non-aggression, or for hateful speech or non-hateful speech, because these are our common understanding. So, based on the task that can be given for crowdsourcing. So, again types of corpora can be classified based on number of languages it has. So, some of the corpora can be just monolingual, maybe only English corpora, like the example I just now you saw in the second slide for English, for American English. So, it is only for English. There can be multilingual corpora, so there can be lots of languages in it. There can be parallel or translated corpora. So, what do we mean by parallel or translated corpora? The same sentences will be in 2 languages or more than 2 languages. So, there is the sentence in English, or maybe the same sentence in 3 or 4 Indian languages, same sentence in Hindi, in Bangla, in Uriya, in Tamil, in Telugu. So, the same sentence. So, it is parallel, same, this is how it is said in Tamil, this is how it is said in Bangla. So, one can say it is the translated form, or one can say it is the parallel corpora, and then there can be comparable one. So, what are the sources of the corpora? There can be different types of sources. Sources can include books, journals, newspapers, any written text available, right. So, there are corpus or corpora for different types of newspaper, and through these newspapers again studies are being done, how one can study how news publication or the language of news have actually changed over the time, looking at the corpus. There can be also sources from where data can be collected, like social media platforms, blogs, comments, YouTube comments, Facebook comments, and different types of social media platforms. From there also data can be collected, and again we have different types of corpora which for which the source of data is social media platform. So, it is already being done. For speech corpus there can be read speech, that means the speech is recorded. So, there are lots and lots of books or different types of materials given to the speakers, they read it and then that is recorded. There can be acted or natural conversation. So, one can act to give that natural conversation effect. So, maybe I am acting like I have to collect speech data, or I have to make speech corpus for say health domain. So, I am acting like a doctor and I keep another of my colleague as a patient, and we are acting as if we are doctor and patient, and we talk, and then that discourse is recorded. Or we can just go directly to some clinic and take their permission and record all the discourse. So, those can be again ways of collecting data for a corpus. Recording or speech collected from fields directly. So, directly we field linguists, they go to the field and directly collect data, or as I mentioned, that can be collected through crowdsourcing. So, people with apps, different types of app in their mobile, they can record directly, and those recordings, of course, with some cleaning and all, can be added to the corpus. So, there can be different ways of creating corpus. For minor languages, generally people have to collect it directly from the field or directly from the native speakers, because for lots of the minor or endangered languages, we do not even find text material, we do not find published materials. So, it becomes difficult to create corpus for those languages, because you do not have any text. So, from where will you create corpus? Then we have to rely on the speech corpus, and that needs direct recording from the native speakers. So, when we talk about collecting data from social media, crawlers are being used. So, crawlers are basically those systems which actually collects the data from different types of websites. Okay. So, general purpose crawlers are for open websites, where different types of all the text materials are being automatically collected. So, one does not need to sit manually, copy paste or collect somehow, right. So, the crawler does the job. Then there are also crawlers for restricted websites. So, there are certain websites which do not allow you to collect data directly, but then with permission and with some ethical issues, you have to resolve them, and then you can collect those through those crawlers. So, it is when we talk about collecting data from social media platform, we do not mean that someone or a team is sitting there copying, pasting sentences or doing things like that. So, it is automatically done, but of course, it needs to be cleaned and arranged, and of course, if needed, annotated. But when we talk about collecting data and creating corpus, one important thing that we also do while creating corpus is creating metadata. So, what do we mean by metadata? Metadata is basically defined as the data about the data. So, we have to have all the record or all the information of the corpus, from where the data has been collected, what are the topics or domains for which the data were collected, different types of versions, if there is a older version and then it was revised. So, and if any other information is there, how many sentences are there, if speech, then how many or what type of speech do we have. So, all type of information has to be there. So, that is very important, and that is can also be taken as part of annotation, but it is not tagged with the sentence, but that information has to be there, that is again important. So, when we talk about the corpus approach, it is lots of studies, as I said, are based on the corpus approach nowadays, because it is very convenient. You want to work on a certain aspect of language, you get a set of data. So, unless and until you are working on, say, an endangered language, you are working on a major language, you have a good corpus, you can always use that for various purpose, for various studies. So, it is also convenient, you do not need to go yourself and collect primary data. So, because corpus approach is based on empirical data, it actually talks about the language use. It is not artificial use of language, it is the real way how language is used, whether it is text based or speech based. Whatever we are dealing with, we have the real use of language. So, that is one thing. If someone is talking that my work is based on corpus approach, that means that the person is working with real data, real linguistic data. The corpus approach always refers to the involvement of a corpus in the study. Again, if someone is saying my work is based on corpus approach, that also means that he or she is referring to a particular corpus or a set of corpora, and that also means that the person is studying on a huge amount of data. Her study is not based on few sentences, it is based on a large collection of data. So, it is convenient to work on corpus because you get systematically arranged data which is large in number. So, you can't, it is not possible for one individual to create a corpus. So, if you get a corpus, you can work on that. Secondly, it involves both qualitative and quantitative analytical techniques. So, quantitative results are generated from the corpus. Based on that, we often explore the qualitative explanation or significance for it. So, how it is convenient to work on corpus? If you are working on corpus, for example, you are working on case markers, you want to see Hindi say, or you are working on any form, any particular word, and you want to see where it occurs. You have say 50,000 sentences in a corpus. You just need to, the machine will automatically mark all the instances of say where say is occurring. Not only that, it can also tell you what are the most frequent words which follows the word say or which precedes the word say. So, that also you can easily get from the corpus. It can easily tell you that looking at the data, you can easily understand that say is used for say separation, instrument, path, comparison. For all these things, this particular marker is being used. How will you? Of course, you will have to, this separation, instrument, path, these things, these terms you will have to analyze, and here comes the qualitative study. So, you will have to understand that, but it will be easier for you to understand that when you have so many sentences, so many examples of say, and you also have the list of words which are preceding it or following it. So, you have all this combination, and this combination will easily help you to come to the conclusion or create a list where this particular say comes, this particular postposition occurs. You will easily understand that, and then based on that occurrence or based on that frequency, you can give your own analysis. So, corpus linguistics is also used for phraseology. It is very often used for phraseology. That is actually taken as the central element of corpus linguistics. So, what does that mean? That mean phraseology means that a word does not give meaning in isolation. It always depends upon its surrounding words, the words which are preceding it or following it. Or we also know that certain words always follows a particular word most of the time. So, there are certain combinations of words which are more frequent. That is looking for that, this statistical tendency of words to co-occur, to occur together, that is called collocation, and some group of words are used together, like one word is followed mostly by some selected words, because they always occur in group. So, this is called collocation, and that can easily be understood or derived from corpus linguistics automatically. You do not need to do it manually. So, that helps for various types of studies. If you are studying a particular form of word, you are studying a particular postposition, preposition, you will know after which word it occurs, or what are the set of words after which this particular postposition is occurring. So, that helps in that way. So, collocation is a very important or central part of the corpus linguistics. This is one study done by Kennedy, where he has studied lots of words, and one among them was between. So, he studied between and found it is used mostly after nouns like differences, distinctions, agreement and meeting. So, these are the frequent combinations, differences between, distinctions between, agreement between, meeting between. So, these are the combinations which are very frequent. So, of course, this is for a particular word between, but there can be various other studies based on this approach. You can look at the corpus and understand that very easily. So, this was about corpus linguistics today. I hope you enjoyed the class. These are some of the suggested readings. I will request you again to read these. Thank you.